Hey Rob, good morning. How are you?
Doing good. How are you doing? Thank you for having me on your show.
My pleasure. So, blockchain, there's a lot that could be said and has been around for a while, but let's start from something simple. What problem does it solve and what problems does it not solve?
So blockchain, unfortunately, has been associated with cryptocurrencies a lot, almost making people think it's the same thing, associating it sometimes with a bad name the cryptocurrency creates in terms of scams and other things. Blockchain is just a piece of technology. It's like blaming a database for a website somebody built using the database. It's nothing to do with it. And it's unfortunate that for all these years has been under this bad shadow, and now that all the spotlights are on artificial intelligence, beside Bitcoin having reached $100,000, but I guess this is a good moment for people finally understanding that blockchain is not tools for criminal, but is a fantastic tools for advancing the way that we live online, and it's a moment to start implementing real life use cases with it. So, um, basically, to answer your question, in an evolution, we are in the information age, if you want, right? And in the information age, the commodity is information. So, as of today, really the value, the first commodity that is purchased, sold, are information. And we moved from analog information to digital information. And when information is analog, it's easy to contain it or to keep it singular. If you think about the painting, somebody can make a copy of the painting, but it's really still a copy. The original still has its value as original is one. I can sell it to you. I don't have it anymore, and you can resell it, and so on and so forth. Even music was in a vinyl disc, and the some amount of copy are produced, and was, slowly became easier to make copies, but the copy were degraded compared to the original until we became digital. And in digital world, the one and zeros are copied to one and zeros, so the copy is as good as the original. That's why a lot of attention against piracy of DVDs was much higher than the one of VHS tapes, for example, right? And the things that we never had until now in the digital world of information was the capacity to create a unique piece, something that is that one that can be owned, sold, and even if there is a copy, the copy is not the original anymore. And the blockchain does this magic, which is amazing if you think about it. I cannot make a copy and paste of my Bitcoin and give it to you. If I could do that, Bitcoin would be worth zero tomorrow. At the same time, when there was this craze for NFTs, people pay millions of dollars for a picture of monkeys, which is crazy for me. But okay, there are other reasons and other discussion to have about that. But the interesting things was that they could buy and sell a small image, and nobody can take them away from them. So you can copy the image, but you don't have that original image. So the ownership of a small pixelated monkey was worth a lot of money because it was the first time that in the digital world you can identify that as yours, show it off, and transfer the ownership to other people. Now, monkeys are not very useful, but in terms of pixelated JPEG of monkeys. But if you transfer these to, for example, title of ownership of a car, then I can sell you my car, transferring the title of ownership in a digital manner, at whatever time of the day or the night, in an interesting way that because I eliminate also the need to go to the DMV department to.
Yeah, thank you. Let's dig on this a little bit because the information age that you just described, the exact copies of zeros and ones that were not possible during the analog before the digital age. I mean, they are still possible. I mean, when you purchase something with a credit card, your bank does the same, right? You have an amount of money, and it provides you the service of storing that amount, right? On my Visa account, I have X number of dollars of budget, and then every time I buy something, they keep they subtract the money. If you have two competing transactions, they are serialized, so you cannot spend your money twice. But what's different here now is that there is no central bank, right, or central authority. Let's talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, the blockchain work in a decentralized manner. The decentralized system is a system that run in several servers that are talking one to the other, where no one is more important than any other. So there is no one leader server that you shut it down and all the others don't know what to do anymore. So this is the most fascinating aspect of a peer-to-peer network, because it's like an animal that lives on life. Is the internet reach worldwide, everywhere in the world? So when there is at least 10 people around the world, each one, maintaining one server, it becomes impossible to shut them all down, because it will take a coordinated work of intelligence or enforcement around the world, which is, not so easy, considering many countries don't cooperate one with the other. So it is something that is fascinating. And they have time guaranteed to be 100%, which in the world of online services, uptime of a server is always something important. How much is your service reliable? Could I find a server online, or is going to go offline? We saw that Facebook went offline a few days ago, and it happened several times. Well, with the blockchain, this cannot happen, because there is going to always at least a few nodes that are standing in the peer-to-peer network, so communication methods, for example, phones, calls that goes through peer-to-peer network, are always guaranteed to route and find their destination. So it is because there is no one central point of failure, which is the middleman of the situation, that you need to trust with your data. Is want to be the one that says what is true, what is not true, and is available only when they want to be available. And they can decide that about you, what they want to decide.
So, to go back to your previous example, if I purchase a car from you, the transaction, the title of this car, will be in my name. In this network of peers or several peers, maybe thousands or millions of them, they will all record this transaction, and anyone that attempts to hijack this transaction, or to falsify, or to change this transaction, they need to fight essentially an army of servers around the world that have the same information and can. So this is truly amazing and fascinating. And yeah, the example with the title and the example with the NFT, or money from a credit card, they are different, right? But still, the idea of not having a bank that I have to go to purchase something, that I have to go to or a notary service, it's it feels a little bit more democratic, right? It feels a little bit more power to us. Is there any drawback, or what are the drawbacks of this technology?
Well, the drawback is simply that when there is no man in the middle, there is nobody I can call asking to help me because I made a mistake. Meaning that I take full responsibility of my actions. If at 3 in the morning I am drunk in the bar and I gift my Ferrari to this blonde lady that I see there, I cannot then, change my mind and get it back, obviously, unless things are programmed for me to do so, But in general, when there is no man in the middle, is much more difficult to protect the user, because the user need to take full responsibility of their action in the system, obviously. But this can be made in such a way that there are layers of double confirmations, or protection, such.
Yeah, technology can help. We read from time to time of rich people. I read a few weeks ago of a lady that was upset with her husband or something, and she threw away the hard drive with I don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars in Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean there could be things more elaborate than long passwords or things like that. But so can we say that, to give a short definition of blockchain, blockchain is distributed, decentralized database, or maybe ledger? How would you define that in a sentence?
The definition of DLT applies a lot to the concept of a cryptocurrency where you have a sort of a bank transaction set. I lecture at the university in Singapore about consensus methods, and my teaching goes on to say, let's make a blockchain to play tic-tac-toe or to play chess, okay? Where the rules of the game are in the node, so in the consensus mechanism, the protocol, if you want. So if you ask the horse to move from its place to the opposite side, you can't, so your transaction is rejected. Equivalent in the Bitcoin, if I try to send you 10 Bitcoin, I only own one, is going to be rejected because I don't have the balance. So in the cryptocurrencies, quite basic, the rules. Rules is, do you have the balance or not? Finish, and is the signature authentic or not for this transaction. But you can create much more different kind of transaction types. For example, I created a system for racehorses. Racehorses are assets that have different rules in different moments of their age and the different nationality that they have. So a racehorse costs money even before it's born because you need to find the stallion and the mare to have, the baby born, and then you need to train it. There is veterinary things, training, then you start doing competitions. So how you manage an asset that changes during his life with so many different kind of transaction types that see the situation of the item. Say the horse is the NFT of the situation, right? Can this NFT have this transaction accepted? Depends. How old is it? How veterinary has before done such and such things. So you can create really something where all the bureaucracy, all the flows of documentation of paperwork are regulated on rules that are written in the software. And in this way, say if I have to go to the gym and they want a health certificate released by a doctor that I'm okay to go to the gym, I can go to a doctor. This doctor is going to have his identity approved as a doctor that can release certificates. He can create a document on the blockchain, which I can then go to the gym and point it to there. And they're going to see that an authorized doctor by the government says that my identity is okay to do the gym. And, all this, if something is wrong in the middle, is going to be stopped and I cannot get to the final thing. And this can be done any moment of the day or the night because the system is always on and available. With the bank that you were mentioning before, if it's Friday night, you need to send money on the other side of the planet. Obviously, you need to wait Monday morning because you need somebody at the bank that authorize the transfer. You depend on a third party. So there is this difference, right?
We touched a lot of several use cases for blockchain, from simple money transfer or Bitcoin transfers to maybe games, and you touched a little bit on something that are maybe is closer to smart contracts. Do we want to talk a little bit about that, and in general all other use cases where we can apply blockchain?
Yeah, a smart contract is a small piece of software, is a small application that a developer create and deploy on the blockchain, and then can be used by third party to validate something. And Ethereum has been the blockchain that gave birth to this idea of a smart contract. I have to say that personally, I don't find them as the ideal way to deploy things for production, but they're a fantastic tool for doing POCs or prototyping things. There are a lot of risk around smart contracts that we have seen in the years, most for the fact they are immutable. So once you made a mistake in your code, there it is. And if a developer has the authorization to change the code, then the smart contract cannot be trusted anymore, simply because if it's moving money, tomorrow maybe my money are gone because the developer can update the code. So it is a very particular strange things, but there are different solutions for decentralized applications that are in place for more important deployments. So I think smart contract gave birth to NFTs, for example, so they have a lot of value when it comes to creating, innovating, coming up with new ideas and testing them for sure. So
So what problem does it solve, or what problems were supposed to solve smart contracts?
a smart contract give a twist to the idea of the crypto was only transferred from person A to person B. So they put a little bit more logic in what you can do with this token that you send from A to B. So I can go through a smart contract to do something. The biggest things that is born out of smart contract is what is called decentralized finance. So not only they start taking from the management of the government the concept of money, but they start also creating system for where people can go leave a collateral in another crypto token. Consider people can assetize the real estate. Say I have a house, I can create assets, tokens of my house, and then I can use this token to get a loan from a DeFi for a decentralized finance contract, which I can pay back, and I don't need to fill a form. I don't have to share my identity, am I or not. All these means that is open to everybody. It's not like a club of the few that can, access this sort of services. And this is beautiful. So really remove, one part of limitation and control that is done by the middleman in the case of the way they will do things today.
Yeah, removing the middleman is always satisfying, and being able to click away a few, do a few clicks and sell or buy or transfer property is always very interesting. So previously you alluded, you were talking about the fact that for someone to hijack, to compromise the network or to falsify documents is very difficult, right? Because there are a lot of countries, there are a lot of servers around the world. Can we maybe, although I said we wouldn't go too much deep into technical, can we speak a little bit about the encryption? How is it possible that millions of servers take part into the security, into encrypting this huge amount of data? How how is that possible?
Look, the advantage is that encrypting data technically means to transform some things that is legible in image, a video, piece of text in gibberish data using a key, and then with the different key or the same key, we transfer these things in something that can be read. Encryption is parallel, is not necessary for blockchain, meaning that there is something extra that people do when they want to save into the blockchain some data privately to re-decrypt it later. But it's something that comes to mind because there is a lot of cryptography done in blockchain. The use of cryptography in blockchain is mainly done for the identity. So each account, what is equivalent to a bank account or wallet or a person identity, has a particular key that is used to sign something. So if I want to send 10 bitcoins to you, I need to sign the transaction, and the transaction is signed with a key equivalent to the account where this bitcoin starting living from, right? In order to give legitimacy to the transfer, so nobody else in my behalf can do this transfer, right? And then many other times cryptography is used in the consensus mechanics in order to keep the blockchain safe in terms of connected.
Let's talk about that, right? When I want to add a block, right? Every few minutes, I don't remember the time, but every few minutes, someone, or few seconds, that someone adds a block with a list of transactions that happened since the last block. How does it happen? How come that everybody is trying, right, but only one wins and gets a very small commission on adding the block to the chain of block. That's why it's called. So how does it work? Adding a block to the chain.
Okay, so there are many different protocol consensus mechanics in different blockchain. Bitcoin is a new block every 10 minutes and is done with what is called proof of work, which I can explain very briefly later. Then there are proof of stake, which is done in a different manner. And there are blockchain with generation of your block every just a few seconds, a few minutes. It depends on the blockchain.
Let's talk a little bit about proof of work in blockchain in Bitcoin, which is probably the most popular or maybe the one that people know.
Yeah, in cryptography, there is a function that is called hashing. The hashing function means to transform any source data, which can be just text, anything like one and zeros, whatever it is, into a string of a constant length. So that the length of the string is always the same. So even the nothing has its own hash. There is let's say 64 digit longs, whatever it is, representing as a decimal format for convenience, as it's going to take too long. But the basic is that is in binary, so it's one and zeros, right? And the idea is if I have a block and I want to create a new block of data, I need to take the hash of my block and create an hash that respects certain rules. So now in Bitcoin, there is what is called difficulty. And this is one of the first mistake done by the Satoshi Nakamoto person or team, where they wanted to have really one computer, one vote. And they never thought the people will come together to solve this problem. So the idea is this, they want to have one new block every 10 minutes. So they calculate that the average computer would take a certain amount of time to find a hash that starts with a certain amount of zeros. So let's say I have my block that I want to propose, and I need to add some little dirt inside the block, like a letter, whatever it is, and then calculate the hash. If the hash starts with, say, 5 zeros, I say just for example, then is valid to be proposed as a new block. Because in the Bitcoin, the first person that arrive and propose a block that is valid is going to be rewarded with Bitcoin. At the beginning, there were 50 Bitcoin. When I tested this thing, I made 6 blocks, so I had 300 Bitcoin, and I formatted the drive with everything because they were worth nothing. They had no reason to exist. Sometimes I cry if I think about it.
Let's dig on this one a little bit. So if you do an hash, so the hashing function is not easily reversible, right?
So, no, the hash function is impossible to reverse it.
It's impossible. So the target, the objective that you have in Bitcoin is to form an hash with that block and with that transaction that happened in the last 10 minutes to create an hash such that the first number of digits are zero, which is very rare,
binary.
which is not a deterministic operation, right? You just use a brute force.
It takes trial and error, exactly. You do it many times until you match. And this amount of effort should take about a minute. So if suddenly everybody is taking only 5 minutes, then it's going to more zero required, so that the effort required 10 minutes to do it. Because there is this reward, what people said, if I have to do an average of 10,000 attempts to get the correct amount of zero with one computer, then I split the problem between 2 computers. So the first, I try 5,000, the second try at the same time, the second 5,000, and at this point, I win against the other. But the algorithm every 2 weeks adjusts the difficulty to require at least 2 computers to make it in. So people start putting 4 computers, 8, until you see those, warehouses full of computers and hashing power, which is nonsense, because it kills the fact that the network need to be supported. The validity to have 10,000 nodes for Bitcoin is because these 10,000 nodes are there to say, this next block is not valid, or this block is valid, or this transaction is valid or not valid. But these 10,000 people that have a node at their home, nobody's paying for their electricity, for the maintenance and everything else, because only a few people with this big warehouse or just a collective of people with these hashing powers are the ones that take all the rewards. And this was not in the intention of Satoshi Nakamoto, which thought that it was a way to distribute the wealth among all the nodes. And then people had a reason to keep a computer on a home that maintain the security of all the network. And this is something that not only, but proof of work is a very weak system. If you're not Bitcoin, for example, Ethereum Classic had no such big attention for miner because the rewards were not worth it. So you consider that the mining power can be rented. So I can suddenly rent a certain amount of hashing power, okay, and hash the problem that I want. So what is the failure of a blockchain is what is called double spending. So the possibility to spend twice the same coins, okay? Because in a peer-to-peer network, the nodes talk with whatever nodes is around them, but they don't know the full extent of the peer-to-peer network, because that's become a federated network. So in this case, means that it may happen that in the extreme side of the network, somebody proposes a new block. In the other extreme side of the network, somebody proposes a new block, and this information doesn't reach all the network. So you're going to have a part of the network that accept block A, another part of the network that accept block B. And later what happened that if there is no communication and the node don't realize that there are what is called a fork, two parallel growing of the blockchain, they keep mounting on top of these nodes. So there is a function that says, if at a certain point you realize that somebody else has a different chain of blocks, okay, you go and count how many zeros there are. The chain of block with more zeros is the one that wins. So if your node has a chain of block that has less zero, you throw it away and you adopt the one that has more zero because it's being harder to be built, okay, stronger if you want. But if you have a blockchain where there is not much hashing power, so the difficulty level is low, okay, and this happened. So it's not just fantasy and a story that I'm telling you. This happened. For example, Ethereum Classic, somebody went there, purchased $1 million worth of Ethereum Classic token coins, okay? Then, very fast, deposit is in several exchanges, withdraw Bitcoin, and then rent a lot of hashing power to rewrite the last piece of the Ethereum Classic blockchain, removing the transaction where he made the deposit to the exchanges. So in this point, his blockchain had more zero than the one that Ethereum Classic usually had because it had the low hashing power. And his chain was adopted. So he found himself with all the $1 million worth of Ethereum Classic that he had before because his transaction where he spent them been deleted, and $1 million of Bitcoin that we draw from the exchanges because this was, and he did what is called double spending. Why? Because proof of work is not a safe protocol. It is always something where the investment of an attack you say is not worth it. So the return, the ROI, what is called return of investment, is not worth it. So attacking Bitcoin will cost me more of what I can extract out of the attack. But it's not because... Okay, and when I explain and teach consensus, I split the consensus in two different kinds. One that take a value from outside the blockchain. For example, proof of work, the hashing power is not an element of the blockchain. proof of storage is not an element of blockchain. It comes out from outside, and there are several proof of power, blah blah blah. Then there are those that use values from within the blockchain. Proof of stake, for example, use a value that is from the blockchain, which is the stake that is being put on the nodes. There are a lot of other proof of history that look at the past transaction of different accounts in order to give them more power or not compared to the other when linking and unlocking. So it's going to be more difficult to attack one that has data coming from the blockchain itself, because you need to rewrite not only the last piece, but all the history previous. So pretty much it will be impossible. This is usually delicate in the moment that the blockchain at the genesis block, which is the block 0, start with only one account. If you have the keys of those accounts of the day 0, then you may have a supercomputer, maybe now a quantum computer, that rewrite everything from day 0 and with changes. But there are rules in the consensus mechanics that don't allow to rebuild the blockchain more than one day. So you cannot roll back more than one day. So at a certain point, we can secure, because there is nothing people can do to change things. So can create an eternal fork maybe, but then it's playing out his own blockchain. So and this is interesting because there are several aspects like the 51% attacks that in peer-to-peer network are things that are a little bit showing vulnerability. That's why there are many other mechanics that are put in place to keep blockchain safe. But obviously, it becomes quite complex to start going down that rabbit hole. But I think for CEOs and entrepreneurs, what is worth knowing about blockchain is that it's not just crypto, not just token. There are ways to keep a blockchain safe, even if there are no crypto token involved, but allow to a lot of other use cases like documentation flow, think consortiums, think franchising, think supply chain, all those where many companies, they want to work together, but they don't want to elect one third company to be responsible with their data. So this is really the golden solution, which is cheap and transparent for everybody. So there is no corruption, other things. Independently do the proof of work.
A few years back, when I was studying blockchain, it was interesting to me to learn that blockchain, at least at that time, had a bandwidth limit, right? It couldn't serve more than a few thousand transactions per second, which seemed a limiting factor. Is that still the case, or depends on which blockchain we are talking about?
It every you know pseudo correctly, meaning Bitcoin has no Bitcoin has a very large electricity consumption due to this proof of work, which some people says that is exactly what give value to Bitcoin. I don't know. It's like gold is not just valuable because it's there, but you need to dig it out of the ground and extract it from from the ore and so on. At the same time, the limit of the technology is that, and sometimes being pushed, it's not really clear if some choice done by developer were political or technical, but the limit of the amount of data for each block is important when you have nodes in places where the internet connection is not super fast, rather than because if I make block of 1 terabyte each, probably I can become better than Visa, MasterCard as a quantity of transaction managed. But at the same time, it's not feasible because you have no time to put together, distribute, validate, So there are scaling system, they horizontally scale. So there are like many parallel blockchain working together, and they can communicate with one another if you want. So if the quantity of transaction is super high, you certainly split among many and then reconcile back in one. I did proof of concept for banking doing this thing, so the issue of also because sometimes you have a certain amount of transaction, but they are not distributed among the day perfectly. Like people make purchase when they come out of work and they go for lunch. So in the 2 hours you have a lot of transaction, then nothing again, then like shopping in the evening. So you know you need to be prepared to receive a huge amount of requests that need to be managed correctly. But
So we might not be ready to displace Visa just yet, but it may come in the near future. So you touched the companies that want to work together, but without giving power to any specific one of them, or maybe a third party, when it comes to exchange documents or. Can you provide maybe a few real use cases?
sure, for example, I did a nice project with trade finance. Trade finance is all the aspect of money connected to import export of goods, if you want. Which means that you need to collect documentation from the sourcing part, so from the Chamber of Commerce of the country where you're purchasing. There is insurances, everything has to fit a certain correct things, and cargo goes through other countries, is shipped through different shipping companies. This makes that the minimum common denominator in terms of technology is paper and pen, because there is no the things that elevate above that, and giving an option that can be adopted on the fly, a simple QR code in a document that you can scan and then give you access to, for example, all the digital traces of this document for the past 1 month, allow the possibility to speed up and guarantee the quality originality of the document, because the biggest work is at the end at the bank. They need to discount, for example, bill of lading or other things. Is the validity of the document, is a fake document created or has been actually signed by the captain of the ship, and so on and so forth. And having something like a blockchain, there is not a private server in a company that require a legal agreement to be signed, accounts to be created, but having something on an open network that the guy at the port can scan when he has the container in front of him in order to add his own input in the things or validate certain things. We managed to do the classic 1+7 in order to get you heard people say, the container is at the port. I cannot collect it because documents are not here yet, right? So the back and forward of this envelope, FedEx brings with a lot of document from a side to another to be filled, signed, evaluate, is reduced from 7 days to 2 days, 3 days. And, when you have $1 million of goods that are stuck in a port, is $1 million of interest that you don't collect, because this is money that are blocked in terms of value. So those are very good examples of use cases that you can have.
Yeah, especially I want to remind people that when you have this kind of transactions between companies in several countries, this data will be in a global distributed network and not in particular servers in a given country, which might create problems, right? For obvious reasons. So yeah, you seem to have quite a knowledge of this stuff and to have navigated the various aspects and problems. At the beginning, I had thought that you might be.
Nakamoto.
Yeah, I was thinking you might be in Satoshi Nakamoto, but then you've been very critical. So either you learn your lesson in creating the blockchain, or you are not the guy.
I'm working in a new layer one protocol that solves a lot of things, that remunerates all the nodes that are participating. data, there are a set of problems on blockchain today. They cannot become bigger and more fat by the day, and nobody pay for it. So the idea of blockchain and the protocol and the system I already built actually, and I need to recode and deploy, but is the fact that if there is a piece of information in the blockchain, this has to pay a sort of a rent for the space that is using. So if you have a piece of information of whatever kind, that you uploaded a movie, or you have your own photos, or you have just your own balance of your own wallet, this costs every month a little bit. If you abandon it, if you have a lot of money inside, it's going to stay there forever. But if you don't, at a certain point when it goes to zero, everything is deleted. And this because people use their own hard drive to save your own data in their computer, right? And it's not sustainable that they're going to keep it there forever. Another thing is the calculation of balances. Calculation of balances should be done, and you just access the current balance, because everything is cryptographically, you can test the number you have today are correct. Then there is the need of decentralized storage. So you need to save all the history, but you need to distribute among the SAP in the nodes of the peer-to-peer network. So there are many things that are interesting and necessary for a blockchain to work without cryptocurrency. The couple from cryptocurrency works okay for document management, for example, for decentralized applications. Now with smart contract, with applications that are written in C and compiled as well. So it is interesting. But I can share with you a link to a book that you can share with the people that watch the podcast.
But the rent that you were describing, rent space for your information, you are describing your own system, or you're describing blockchain?
No, the blockchain don't have this. So whatever operation, if I tomorrow I put inside Ethereum, I don't know, big amount of data, I pay when I put the data inside, yes, for sure. But then I don't pay anymore, and that data is always available for me there forever. This is not
So you are
sustainable.
describing your own system that you are proposing. Are you? I mean, does it have a name? Are you going to propose this publicly? You will have a lunch, or?
Yeah, we already being launched and then being put offline by me is some work we did from 2019 and 2021. Yeah, the name is called ZUBC. And now it's going to be recoded and redeployed with more strong functionalities after additional experience done. It costed me a small fortune, but it's something that I really wanted to do, given the experience done with other blockchains.
Interesting. So maybe we can do another podcast in a few months about that when you go
Sure
online.
thing, absolutely.
So let's talk about Trump. He proposed, he talked on the fly a few months back during an interview about purchasing blockchain to reduce the US debt, right? And I think everybody laughed. And then he talked again during the conference blockchain Bitcoin 2024, and he explained a little bit more detail what he wanted to do, right? Print money, buy Bitcoin, accumulate Bitcoin as a strategic reserve, so that it would grow up in value, and with that, partially or maybe even totally pay US debt, which is in the trillions, right? Dozens of trillions. And after that, there were a few articles on the Financial Times and other places where they dug the numbers, the philosophy, and I mean, they were serious, right? Nobody laughed anymore. So on January 20th, 2025, Trump will take his place in the White House. Do you think that can happen? That the U.S. government will buy hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin? I saw an estimate from the Financial Times. If they buy 200,000 Bitcoin each year for 5 years, then it might be enough. And by the way, we also have other agents like MicroStrategy, which is buying Bitcoins a lot lately. So what are your thoughts around that?
When Ecuador, at a certain point, started buying a lot of Bitcoin, and for them, after a while, it went down. Even everybody was laughing about them. Now they have half of a billion on Overplus with those Bitcoin that I put in the past. So I think that I'm not financial advisor, so I'm not giving any financial advice to anybody. So whatever I say, please don't put in practice. But mathematically, it cannot go down. So Bitcoin can only go up. Unless it's abandoned, but it's such a strong brand that it will be the last of
Why
the crypto.
it cannot
Because
go down?
it's
It
a
could be
free.
abandoned, right? It could be abandoned. You come up with your
No,
new
no,
stuff
no,
in six
no. In the
months.
long term, it's simple like this. Look, the amount of Bitcoin ever in existence is very well precise defined. Okay, uh, there are more millionaires in the world than there are single Bitcoin available. Then there is people like me that formatted and I drive with 300 Bitcoin inside, so it become even more scarce. Okay, so now the moment that somebody want a piece of Bitcoin, and there are not enough, the price can go only up in terms of demand. Then there is gonna be a moment that it goes up, it goes down, but in the long term, it's hardly going back to $200 each.
Yeah, but explain to me this. What about obsolescence? So you or someone else like you create something nicer, more appealing than Bitcoin, more useful, more I don't know, advanced, quantum Bitcoin.
Because it is such a strong brand and it's got such an adoption. Now all the financial institution, they don't go by the meme coins. If somebody wants to speculate, maybe they do, but they don't advertise. Is they only go to Bitcoin. They don't even mention Ethereum, which is another very large and persistent, strong blockchain. So it will be the last cryptocurrency to be abandoned. Pay attention that Bitcoin is a brand, meaning that the technology behind it can change. Tomorrow, some bank with the force is going to make it their own control of the things. I don't know. But the brand Bitcoin is going to
This
be
is a
there.
good point. So
Yeah.
maybe the next guy that builds something very appealing in 10 years or 20 years, that will just rebrand it like someone will rebrand it like,
You can transfer your Bitcoin to the new valid system platform that has full control of government, whatever. I don't know. But at the same time, it's not gonna go away in terms of Bitcoin is gonna be there. Because if it goes away means that everything else is gone away. Your, you know.
in US crime series, on Netflix, we often see people, technical guys, go take hard drives and read information that was deleted. Did you try those techniques on that hard drive with the 300
No,
bitcoins?
because I sold the notebook with everything before
Oh
I
boy,
cared.
that's
So
even more difficult.
I consider it the 6 blocks, because I created 6 blocks, was a very small notebook, not so powerful, in dial-up. So it wasn't even connected with DHL or in dial-up in 3-4 days. Has made only transfer 10 out of it, only transfer 10. And then it wasn't some, because I was looking about something completely different. I started getting interested in the peer-to-peer network at the time of way before when BitTorrent came out. If you remember, before, people were using Emul and other things, and those were centralized, so were easily, people get found and incriminated. As soon as BitTorrent came out, the paradigm changed. The regulator have to punish the users because there is no central place for. And I wanted to do a file system based on the protocol, because BitTorrent indices by hashing the files, and we explained hashing before, right? So each file has a specific hash, and as soon as you modify the file, the hash will be different. So it doesn't work in terms to be a decentralized file system. I wanted to create a decentralized file system. In the past, there was something called Usenet. I don't know if you know it. Practically, people communicated through the mail protocol in some sort of news groups. And there I was part of this small new group for decentralization cryptography, and that's where somebody gave me the code for a Bitcoin node. It's actually a version earlier to the first available in the GitHub. But in there, I, tested it. I tried it. I keep it on. I didn't understand very well what it was doing. I wasn't interested in decentralized coins or money. I was interested in making a file system that is decentralized, and that I eventually made, but it's just something else.
Very interesting. Yeah. So the power of backups
Right.
that we didn't do. So it's possible, it is possible for the US government to pay off debt buying bitcoins.
No, I think the number are too big. They don't that, like if they buy all the Bitcoin in the world, the Bitcoin stop working because they need circulation. They need people to be able to sell them. If they buy them all, which they can't afford. And second, the debt of the United States is so huge.
Well, if they buy, let's say they buy, let's do some number, a million bitcoin, right? A million bitcoin at 100K each is what? 100 billion.
If you buy 1 million Bitcoin and the last of the Bitcoin that you're buying is not worth 900,000, it's going to be worth way more because as you empty the offer, the price just skyrockets up in a second. So you can buy the first, unless you create a contract beforehand with all at the fixed price. It's not
But
easy.
the idea might have some sense. So if you print money and you put money in circulation, you have inflation, right? Because there's a lot more money and things will cost more. But if you print money and with that money you only buy Bitcoin, it does make sense. You could buy trillions of Bitcoin, right? You buy a trillion of Bitcoin, which is more than a million, right? Probably.
But then is the dollar that is not going to be worth anything at the end of the operation. There must be backing of something. They already don't have the gold to back up all the dollars that are around the world. And more countries are dropping the dollars. Now, hopefully with Trump, people start loving back things, but Trump has been of use, no war around the world, no scare, and a lot of countries drop the dollar as,
But
like
can they really?
they did already, I tell you, and I can see living in this part of the planet, I see the difference, how everything used to fluctuate with dollars and how nothing fluctuates with dollars now. Very little. So the
Yeah,
dollar
but
has
as long as Europe and the West, are will still around with the dollar, it will make. It might be possible, right? They partially pay their debt with.
For sure, it help is one of the technique. I think that the Dodge Department of Government, what is Elon Musk with the other guy, that's gonna make a big difference. Cutting waste of money, cutting costs that are not used, that is gonna save them much more money than they can recover by buying Bitcoin. There is so much waste. You think just the amount of money given to Ukraine, for example, it is insane, and it's not because of they care about the war. Is there is being a lot of money laundering. The second,
War is always a very good business, right? There are
exactly correct.
companies and workers that live on that.
So let's see. Interesting to see how it goes. We can for sure have another call in the middle of Trump 4-year term, and
Yeah, I don't think that if they really purchase bitcoins, I don't think that will affect the dollar. But I might be wrong. I'm curious though.
no, that was it. No, but they cannot. They can never affect the dollar because they would never be able to buy so many Bitcoin. As simple as it is, because it's against their own interest. They cannot possess all the Bitcoin in circulation. They're gonna skyrocket the price of Bitcoin to $millions each, and they need to resell. So they're gonna do the pump and dump game on Bitcoin as a government. They will be, we say, being illegal by themselves. Enforce rules for us to do that with other things is also, like unethical and at the damage of who? Because who's gonna be the people that when Bitcoin is worth $1 million each, start going buying, and then the government, drop all the Bitcoin that they bought in order to recover the money. I don't think Bitcoin economy is such a small economy compared to the economy of the American dollars, that is so irrelevant. I think as of today, maybe.
So how many bitcoins are created, are mined every hour?
So we went from 50 to 25, 25, 12 and a half, 12 and a half, 675. I think we're at 675 at the moment, if not already moved to 3 something.
6 and 25, 6 and a quarter every 10 minutes.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's about 36, 37 Bitcoin per hour. So it's the few hundred per day.
Yeah. So they're getting little, and that's why this is a moment where the incentive of doing is gonna go away if the value of Bitcoin goes down. The moment the Bitcoin goes down, the one creatable block is very little. All the big miners start going mining other blockchain where it makes more money for them. It happened already in the past. So now that the Bitcoin is 100,000, even if it's a little amount of Bitcoin, the quantity of money is much higher, compared.
It's still a lot. Well, we will see. Maybe we'll meet in spring of 2025 and we'll talk about your new stuff. We'll talk about Bitcoin and Trump and whether they will purchase or not. In the meantime, thank you for your time, Rob. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me in your show.
Bye.